Yeah,
We're live.
we're lost.
Do
Yeah.
you want to do you want to? Okay, so before Rodrigo kicks it off, I'm going to pre-kick it off and say this is the first time that we've tried this with Riverside and LinkedIn Live in more than a year because it usually breaks. So hopefully this is working. Let me see if this is actually coming in because there's always a little bit of a lag on LinkedIn, and it says click to join live. Thank you for being patient with us. While yeah, it's working. Cool. All right. Well, welcome to this LinkedIn Live from Nearshore Cyber, and also kind of a soft intro to a thing called what? What do we call this, Rodrigo?
Uh, we call this. I think I can hear you loud and clear. The the LinkedIn band, you mean? Sorry. Oh, so yeah. We're starting this event for Aramis. Project Aramis is starting. It's a SaaS that looks for the standardization of the cybersecurity workforce. We are really happy to have our first event here. And yeah, I'm Rodrigo. I'm the CMO of Aramis. I've been in the cybersecurity field in marketing for a bit now. And yeah, I think something happened with the LinkedIn. Hold on. It's working. Yeah, it's like, but yeah, thank you for inviting me to this project, Peter. We have been working in this for a bit now, and yeah, was excited for the first event here. And I pass you the mic here.
Well, no. So I want to do talk a little bit about Rodrigo because um, a lot of people know me because I've been around for about 100 years. But Rodrigo has a history in this business that I think is really interesting, which is one of the reasons that I invited you to join this venture of ours. So tell us your story.
So yeah, I do cybersecurity marketing for different brands right now. Well, I have been in different in different companies, and right now I started my own firm, my own creative firm that focuses on tech and cybersecurity, and also AI companies. We do branding, we do marketing, we do content for this specific niche, and for Pride Garments, I'm here helping with all the branding, with all the marketing, and also with making sure the message is understood through the whole field. So people that are looking to get into cybersecurity, that are already in cybersecurity, and that want to grow a team in cybersecurity, and also to understand what's the current status of the workforce, and also how can they remediate their problems in the talent side, right?
And your day job is a thing called Neuwerk, and I hired
Yeah,
Neuwerk
no,
to
yeah.
redo the Nearshore Cyber brand, and they did a great job, and they're about to redo the Nearshore Cyber website. Um,
Thank
so,
you,
and
thank
you
you.
work for Maltego, which is pretty cool.
Yeah,
Um,
and also for Echelon Risk and Cyber, and for all the echelons here. My voice
and,
is pretty echoey. It says
oh, that's okay.
pretty
You
sad.
sound fine. You sound fine to me. I don't
Okay.
think there's a problem out there. All right. Yeah, we usually do these things as group events because the technical stuff is a lot easier when it's just like, let's have 100 people join and we'll just deal. So forgive the uh, hesitation on that. So let me give you a quick intro on me, and then we'll get into the topic. So I'm Peter Schavacher. I'm CEO and co-founder of Nearshore Cyber. Laura Maria is my co-founder in that. Nearshore is not going away. Nearshore Cyber was started by us about 4 years ago. I live in Oaxaca, Mexico, and I found myself in a position where I wanted to find ways to get people work from places like Mexico, places like the Philippines, like Greece, like Malaysia, things like that for clients in the United States, and we've been pretty successful at that. I come from about 28 years in cyber and about 30-ish years in IT before that. So I'm a fan of history. If you're a fan of history, you're a friend of mine. Mostly my friends here anyway. Um, but I have been on all three sides of this business. I've been a cybersecurity professional. I still do some consulting here and there. Been a CISO, hired people, fired people. Had to look for work going back decades. Um, and now we're an agency recruiter. We also work with our clients closely on workforce development and assessment and all that jazz. And we found that there are serious problems throughout the life cycle. And we've been banging our heads on the cyber labor problem forever, but we got really close to all three phases of the problem through Near Shore Cyber. And I don't like to let serious problems lie. And so we look for problems in terms of, first, the talent, right? The job seekers. And I was seeing like weaknesses in the ways people look for work and the way they position themselves and the way they understand their own skills. And we looked at things like training and assessment, things of that nature. And we found problems, right? And then we also looked at the way that hiring was done from the buyer's perspective, meaning um, the companies that were, the employers, and we were finding problems there. And then as an agency of recruiters, finding problems with the agencies. Everybody wants to look for a bogeyman. Everybody wants to look for the cause of the situation that we're in. I don't think anybody thinks that the cybersecurity job market is healthy today. In fact, it's getting worse. It's gotten to the point where it's basically not functioning for most people, and it looks like it's only going to be decaying from there. So, I'm a systems guy. I found that the problem is actually across the board. Now, the title of this, what are we calling this webinar?
It's no going back toward the new cyber labor market. That's the
Yeah.
title of this.
So
Oh,
you'll sometimes hear people say, "Well, when are we going to get back to something normal?" Good news, bad news. Bad news is there's no going back. So let's talk for a minute about what it was like and how we got here, and then where I think the solutions lie.
yeah.
So, um,
Yeah, I think that we can start like from the question like how was getting the job like before, like getting starting in IT, starting in cyber, how how was the old way, like for explaining to agency or like like me, yeah, right?
this is one of the things I love about Rodrigo is he comes from the generation that didn't live through this, but a lot of us remember thinking back to the 80s. Like if you went looking for a job, you did not look online for remote work. You went to a newspaper. Now, in the newspaper, you would find today we would call a job description. But a job description was not like a one-page or a multi-page description. It was like 2 or 3 inches of text. At the bottom of that, you might have, like, the logo for the company and the phone number, and maybe the address. And you were, qualified applicants please apply at such and such, right? And then you would either call, and they would say, "Send us your resume." Well, to what address? You write down the address, and you would take your resume, and then you would write a cover letter. Now, it was called a cover letter because the cover letter, like, literally was on top of your resume, and you would fold it and put it in a thing called an envelope. The technical term for that envelope was an A10 size envelope, at least in the United States. In Europe, it was probably something else. But the States, where I grew up in Westchester, Pennsylvania, near Philadelphia, it was an A10 envelope. Now, there's every now and then people will still talk about how long your resume should be. How long should your resume be, Rodrigo?
I think, in my opinion, one page. Uh, well, I think that right now everybody is taking tons and tons and tons and tons of content at the same time, and like the attention span of everybody is like this, like 3 seconds. It's not. I cannot find the keywords that I'm looking for. I cannot find the description that I'm looking for, or and some people use photos in their ref like in their CVs, right? Um, yeah, I don't. I think that's the like something that like the recruiters taking count, like and like how fast can I find the information I'm looking for, right?
That is an excellent Gen Z ex post facto rationalization. And it is all true. But where it really came from was you have an A10 envelope, you have a resume, you have a cover letter. If you have a second page to your resume, That'll fit. You put one stamp on that. If you have 3 pages to your resume, or 2.5, or 3 sheets of paper, it won't fit in the envelope. That's why where the argument came from, like, how long should my resume be? So what you would do is you would have 1, maybe 2 sheets of paper, and you would take the cover letter, and your cover letter said, "To whom it may concern, I'm applying for a job of such and such, or anything like this in this department. Could you please route this to the hiring manager or human resources?" You mail it, or you go to the office. You walk into the reception desk and say, "Hey, could you do me a favor and get it to the hiring manager for such and such? There's a cover letter in here." The receptionist would look at it and go, "Yeah, no problem." And maybe they bin it after you leave. But chances are they would put in a slot on their desk or in a bin for, like, resume submissions or job applications, and off it would go. The cover letter was to cover your CV, and that's what it was about. So if it seems odd that we use cover letters today, when we have email and we have application forms that say, like, summary, and there's a section at the top of your resume that says professional summary. Like, these are all these places where you can explain who you are, what you do, what you want. But we have this artifact that goes back probably to the 60s, right? My first job I got when I was 13. I got at a produce stand. I walked in on my a week before my 13th birthday, because in Pennsylvania you could get a job on your 13th birthday. And I, like, walked in and I got the job, and then I took my paperwork to the school district because they had to approve it. You can only work 24 hours a week, right? And my mom helped me with it, right? That's what you did, right? And so still to this day, we have this artifact from that era that we all kind of explain like it's like we do have reasons, and some of them have to do with attention span, but it goes way back. Um, um, Now time runs on, and actually, I did this on paper. My notes are on they're in a book, which is crazy.
I think the
Um,
comment section is going really crazy right now. Like,
oh, I know, I love the
they're
someone
really
like
active.
Peter can't I can't one. Well, it's funny. A little let me talk about that later in complex backgrounds, because eventually you transition from job to executive placement, and it's a different category. And when you get to that point, like, things get difficult, and a lot of us have complex backgrounds that are hard to summarize. Um, but we'll get into that later. A little more history, right? Um, in Before 1996, if you wanted a Solaris administrator, how do you find one? You didn't go on LinkedIn because there was no LinkedIn. You would call an agency. My first job in IT was at Earthlink. I was employee 185. It was a tech support job that I got because I had customer service experience, and I was fiddling with computers, and I was playing with bulletin board services. The interview consisted of 3 questions. What can you do on the internet? Um, what is IRC, and how do you get online? That was it. That was the interview. There was the IT was in such an explosion of activity that if you could answer those questions, you could get a job, right? This was the early dot-com era. This is when people were on modems and huge rollouts. This is a period when I'll never forget. There's a period where for 6 weeks, Earthlink had no working email. It went down. It was crushed, and people kept paying, right? This is the sort of rush. And our strategy in those days, and this was literally came to me from the VP of support, said our growth strategy is acquire real estate and desks and phones and put people in them. That was it. So the bar was super low. Now, around the same time in the 90s, there were people who were getting online through bulletin board services, and I actually did some hiring online in the 90s. I had a project involving data entry. I was on a bulletin board service called the Annex BBS. It was the second most popular in Los Angeles. Number 1 was Miller's Party Board, but I was in the Annex because a friend of mine got me on the Annex. I had a slip account, which meant I had my own IP address. And I posted a job on the Annex for data entry operators. And it created a scandal because people thought it was a scam because no one advertised online for work. You didn't do that. And I was paying 5 cents an entry. I'm like, enter an address from this spreadsheet I'm going to send you. You put it into a Microsoft Access database, which I would distribute because it was the extent of my knowledge of data. It wasn't online. It was just like, here's an MDB file. Like, just enter it here, send me the file, right? But people just didn't do online recruiting in those days, and I did because I'm just like, I don't know how else to scale this.
But
One of the
ho
yeah,
what did you trust it like that channel? Like, why did it work? Like, did people send their resumes, for example?
it worked because there were a couple of people there, including the sysops, who were friends of a friend and said, "This guy's okay. He's legit."
Okay.
And then I did some orders and people gave me some data entry and I paid them. I literally I mailed them checks, like checks. And they
Nice.
got their money. They
Okay.
got their like $15 or whatever. And people were like, "Oh, well, they actually pay." It was me. I was working for it was a family business. Um, one of the things I found was that most of the people who were the regulars in the annex were disabled or they were
Okay.
shut-ins. They were people who could not get out. And I was asking them to do remote work, which is very early in the game, but it was the first time that I know of that anybody was doing anything like advertising online for employment. It didn't last very long. I did it for about 3 months, and eventually, like, the project got published. It was in directory in Philadelphia. I was in LA, but that was the first case. '96, there was a thing called Monster Board, the Monster Board, which is the first major, um, recruiting or job platform. And it took a while for that to 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 pick up. Around the same time, IRC starts to come online. PPP, which was dynamic addressing, came online. I was paying $39 a month for the annex, which in 1995 was a lot of dough. Um, Earthlink, 1995 or $20 a month of all you can eat internet if you could get online, right? So this we start to see, you know, people get like retail internet access. Um, but people were still applying for jobs in the same way. There was a period when, um, I got laid off after I moved to Los Angeles from, um, it was around 2000, and the way I looked for a job was I would go to the RSA website, see who was exhibiting, because those people had money. I would go to the websites for the companies that had an address online. And I had a actually, I think it was an Excel database, or it was a I'm sorry, Access database or Excel file, and I would do a mail merge. Now this was this was the easy apply in the early 2000s. I would do a mail merge with labels, and I would do the cover letter.
Yeah.
I didn't modify the resume, and it was one page, right? And the reason it was one page was if I had 2 pages plus the cover letter, I was afraid the envelope would open, and I didn't wanna use tape because it was weird. And I also didn't like licking envelopes, and I felt like if I use a sponge in the water, it would get weird, and it did, right? But I would bulk applications would mean like 20 resumes and cover letters. I think at that time, I did about 50. I wound up getting a job with I forgot who, but that was how you did it, and you had to take your time, and you also know those days not everybody had a website, or if they had a website, they didn't have the address, and so you'd have to, like, hunt around, but that was how it was done in those days. There were also fax machines, and I owned a fax machine, and so you could
Well,
try that. Yeah, like,
yeah,
fax machines were a thing. I had the
I
thermal
was reading a
kind.
comment there, like, they were around, like, when they sent out their resumes through
Yeah.
Winbags or something like that?
Yeah, WinFax w that yeah, I had WinFax too.
Nice.
Mine was not reliable, and I had two POTS lines at home for, like, one fax, one modem, and then a third one for voice. Like, we were we were styling, right? To this day, I always have I have backup internet. Um, but the thing is, like, if you were really aggressive at enterprising, you get a lot done, right? And I did get remote work. I work for Tenable remotely. I work for Internet Security Systems remotely, sort of. I was a sales engineer for Southern California. I was a sales engineer um, for NFR as well. And it was modems, and we didn't have video conferencing. You would get on planes to go meet people. Um, Around 99, I went to work for Citi with Y2K money. I built a SOC. I went as a tech writer. I wound up taking over the SOC because there was nobody else to do it. Not because I was smart. I was available, right?
But hold on.
And yeah,
Uh, Y2K money was something that most of the companies needed to have, like for preparing for
yeah.
Y2K.
So Y2K, contrary to popular belief, was not bullshit. It was a real thing. People think that it was fake because we didn't have problems. We didn't have problems because we did our jobs.
Okay.
And there are stories I could tell that I won't because, well, suffice it to say that I'm aware of cases where if we hadn't done our jobs, major global corporations would have stopped running at midnight. A lot of the time, it wasn't because of Y2K bugs specifically, but because things like stuff expired at midnight that year. The year before that, we had the Euro changeover, which was like a rehearsal. We looked at it as dress rehearsal for Y2K. So the Euro came online on January 1st, 1999. Y2K happens when Y2K happens. And with that event, you had like this the money wasn't there anymore. A lot of people who otherwise couldn't have gotten jobs because they had non-traditional backgrounds, because they're hard to categorize because, um, the need was so great they could get jobs. So you have these different phases. You have the early dot-com era, and there were a lot of weirdos who came in, including a lot of people who eventually became security wonks. Same thing happens with Y2K. I was involved with, the early internet through Earthlink, because I was on the internet and I thought it was magic, and it was, right? We had Y2K and another sort of onrush of capital, a lot of need, a lot of people like me who I mean, I don't have a degree, right? I'm an autodidact. But I don't check any of the traditional boxes. A lot of us didn't. And security was always populated by people who didn't fit the mold because there was no mold. We were making the mold. So the way you got into it typically was you were available and you asked difficult questions like, is that the is if we take that machine down in the corner that says DNS on it, what happens? Right? And people were like, "We don't say that." I'm like, "I'm saying it." And they're like, "Okay, fine, you own that problem now." And you do. So after Y2K, we around that time we saw scandals like Enron, and WorldCom and things like that. But a lot of that really was made worse by the withdrawal of Y2K money. But security was starting to pick up. Like information security hadn't become cybersecurity yet. Cyber, I think, came from like Department of Defense or something. Like people who wanted a cooler word. InfoSec was InfoSec. Network security was network security. So that comes along. By the time 2008 happens and the financial crisis happens, cyber had so much money in it, and the demand was picking up versus the availability of talent that a lot of us didn't even notice. I mean, Y2K, the financial collapse happens. I was building a socket, Hydro-Quebec, in Montreal. I didn't miss a beat. I went from there to building a sock for Bank of Canada, didn't even notice. Everybody else in IT was freaking out because they were losing their jobs. Financial services was taking a big hit. But all through that, security was picking up more and more momentum, and people with non-traditional backgrounds were continuing to get work. Remote work was starting to pick up. So again, a lot of people who were shut-ins, people who were disabled, people who were immunosuppressed, um, a lot of people who like queer and trans people who were not on the map yet were able to get work really easily. Um, Now, what happened over time was the problems continue to get worse. Money gets piled in. And with every deal, there is a promise by the vendor that you're going to be able to get this work done with fewer people. That was never true. What would happen was you'd buy the expensive SIM or identity system or NIDS, NIPS, whatever, and you need more people. Now, around this time, I was working I wound up working for Optiv. I built a SIM practice there. I went in as a consultant, same thing. I was a particularly good, SIM engineer, but I was good at making lists and getting stuff done. And I didn't let anything stand in my way. I was a business hacker then. I'm a business hacker now. And so I knew how to build business for them. And I saw this play out over and over again. Drop $500,000 on this product, you will be able to reduce your staff by 20%. Never happened. Remote work picks up more and more. People don't want to spend to get people on planes, and so there are more people enter the industry. We get to COVID, and a couple of interesting things happen. One is that by this time, a lot of people started getting invited to join cyber, by this time it's called, who had no experience in IT. The rest of us kind of wandered in. A lot of us got into security by mistake. I was one of them. And we accumulated experience from non-IT jobs to customer service and IT jobs. And then eventually we're like, oh, somebody's got to do security. Could you do it? That was pretty much the standard process. But by the time you got a security job, you'd already had like 5, 10, 15, 20 years of experience in something else. But then we were such desperate straits in terms of finding security people. We were like, what if we reduce the standard and try and accelerate the learning process so that we can get people in here without as much experience? The problem is that most security isn't about security. Most work is not about what's in the books or in the courses or in the certifications. It's about stuff that you learn around the water cooler. It's about the stuff that you learn in the office, in meetings that you're invited to just to learn. It's from the mentoring that goes on all the time, but nobody calls it mentoring. Like the idea of like, you're going to get a mentor, and it's like, to some degree, it's like a bit forced. But that's what this spot that we're in. Now, COVID happens, and there was already a lot of remote work, and then everybody's told, you're out of work. Like there's about 2-3 months when everybody thought they were screwed. A lot of people get laid off really quickly. And then suddenly people are like, oh my God, work from home. We're shutting down the office. We're going to save a whole lot of money by canceling leases. Happened to me. I was running MDR for a company in New York, and they're like, we're going to shut down Madison Avenue, an office, not the whole street. Like, we're just going to shut it down. Costs us a lot of dough, right? Now we don't have a reason to commute in from Connecticut, or in my case, from Greenpoint. And so they shut that down, and everybody's working from home. Now, my department was lucky. We were all remote anyway because we're a SOC. And if I would spend 7 minutes on the G train, I had to like call people and say, I'm going to be offline for 7 minutes. Don't break anything. Right. So it was already kind of naturally happening. So then you have this enormous rise in demand. And then what happens is everybody gets settled in. Supply chain disruptions start, which were a major problem and causing a lot of churn and a lot of changes in terms of what people are spending on. That starts to fade around 2022. That was the hottest labor market perhaps in history, and certainly in security. That's around the time we started Neutral Cyber. We were like riding high. It was easy. And then there was like the third quarter of, I want to say it was 2022, it crashes. Now what? You had a whole lot of people who were told anybody can get a job in security. And there were specific kinds of job roles that they were lured into and told to train for, and told that you get certifications for, and all this stuff. And suddenly people come out of these jobs and they can't get them.
But just a question here, like, why do you think that happened? Because of the promises of getting a high paying job in this hot market, or the productification of a roadmap, or tons of gurus in the community, or like, when did it stop being a cybersecurity community and it started being a cybersecurity market, for example, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there was always a labor market segment. Um, it came from everywhere. Like, there's no one place that you can point to and says, like, this was the cause of the imbalance in the market. It but I'll tell you a few of them. One was we saw the rise in the problem in the threat side and said, "We need more people." That like the people in my stock were constantly overwhelmed. We never had enough people. And so we were always like, we got to get more people in this market. The people that we're looking for, they're too expensive. We can't afford them. So wages needed to come down and they weren't coming down. At the same time, people were having trouble finding jobs in other places, and there was a TV show called Mr. Robot,
Oh
and
yeah.
people oh, yeah, early on, I would say I was because 'cause I've interviewed like 2,000 people. It's like one of the weird things about Nearshore Cyber is we do tech interviews. Like, nobody told me as a recruiter you're not supposed to do tech interviews. I've always done tech interviews, so I did tech interviews. I found out like a year and a half later that I'm not supposed to do that, but I'm like, it's dishonest. I gotta check people. And I would say, like, "Why you wanna be in security?" And a lot of people said, "Well, I watched Mr. Robot." I'm like, he's
Wow.
schizophrenic. I've never watched it, by the way, but I think it's about a guy who's
Oh,
schizophrenic, right? I
yeah.
won't.
I think you must watch it at least one time.
I'm not gonna do
But
it.
I understand,
I'm a
I
Matrix
understand your part
guy.
comes with it.
Yeah. Yeah, to me, it's all like Neo and Morpheus. Like, that to me, that's as close as I get to the fiction part. Um, yeah, when I was shut down for the day, I don't wanna watch anything about security.
Completely
But, like, I
understandable.
would hear this yeah, I would hear, like, it looks cool, it looks glamorous. The problem with security is the doing of security, it's not cool, it's not glamorous, it used to pay well, it doesn't anymore for the most part, for the
Yeah.
most part. Now, here's the other thing that happened over time was there was a time, late '90s, there were information security people, and there were really, like, 2 segments. Well, maybe 3. One was network security. Network security was firewalls. Network security had lots of money in it because it was connected to networking, and networking still had a lot of capital going into it, and you had highly elastic budgets. If you were in networking, you could get money very easily. The other one was endpoint security, which really was just meant antivirus, and nobody liked those people, and it was all basically, like, one step away from the typewriter repairman. In fact, I worked for a place where we were referred to by the business as the typewriter repairman. 'Cause that's how they thought about us. So endpoint security has for the in my mind, it's still the most important part of security, and it got the least money. But that existed, and then you had the beginnings of audit and assurance and things like that, and instant response actually came kind of like from each of those, but mainly from the audit and insurance people because they understood how the business worked, they understood how the applications work, and they had some sense of the legality of it, and they knew how the organization worked. So you had those that was it. They had 3. Now you start to see identity come up through Unix and when is Unix administration? I say Unix, not Linux, because Linux doesn't become like a viable production operating system until much later. I was using Linux in like at Earthlink in the late '90s, but we didn't run anything of significance on it. We were running on Solaris, HPUX, Digital Unix, stuff like that. That was
Okay.
that was what you're running. And you sure as hell didn't run it on Windows until much later. Um, identity starts to come out of that a little bit, directory services, things like that. Um, the point is, and there is a point, information security, cybersecurity started to differentiate and diversify. So today, when we say, well, I want to work in information security, I want to career in cybersecurity, what part?
Yeah.
What part of cybersecurity you want to work in? Do you want to work in GRC? Do you want to work in identity? Do you want to be an identity and access management engineer, analyst, assessor, architect? Do you want to be if you're doing network security, that might involve maybe you're working in like Netscope. Maybe you're doing DLP, which is related to the so cybersecurity is no longer 1, 2, or 3 things. Evidence of that is, again, if you're an old timer like me, in 1999, I would get to my office and I would start reading the information security trades, including things like FRAC and Bruce Schneier's cryptogram. I would start reading at 9, and by around 11 to 11:30, I had read everything that was published on information security that the day before, the night before. Everything. Try and do that today. It's
Oh
not
no,
possible.
not
Yeah, it's
possible.
just totally possible. And what happens when you have that much stuff going on is you have to specialize, and you have specialization and subspecialization. So which one are you talking about? So what that meant was it became very difficult to say, like, what job you were going to aim for, what you were gonna train for, where you're gonna pursue, and then what you should apply for. On the other side now, that's for the seller. So when you are an employee or a consultant or whatever, you're a seller of skills, time, talent, whatever. The buyers have the same problem. And this is why I say it's nobody's problem in particular. Because they didn't know how to describe the work and they still don't for the most part.
Okay.
Recruiters are went through an interesting change where they started out with these are the people you go to if you needed somebody who could do X, and they knew everybody in town because it was local,
Yeah.
right? And a lot of the time you would hire people on a temporary basis, like I was. You do a 3-month engagement, 6-month engagement, then somebody would say, "Hey, do you want to convert?" Where I was, like, nobody wanted to convert because we could make a lot more money on an hourly basis than we could on a perm. I was offered permanent jobs more than once, and I turned them down because I'm like, I'm making bank working 80 hours a week, and I loved the work, loved it. 'Cause I was constantly learning, and the people I was working with were awesome, and we were all in the same bullpen, and we all ordered Chinese every night on the company's credit card. We all smelled bad, and we all had a great time.
Sounds like a
And we would
great
go home.
job.
It was great. We'd go home and we play at our labs, right? We all had Visio diagrams of our home labs. Like we were in it.
Nice.
What happens is with recruiters is suddenly they're being asked to recruit worldwide or around the country.
Yeah.
How does that work? Well, LinkedIn shows up. Good. You can start to identify those people on LinkedIn. You start building networks that are national, but you also have people who get the idea that they can become recruiters just by having a LinkedIn account. And you have this influx of people who see that like the barrier to entry for recruiting looks really low. And it is. Anybody who can find a client who needs people and can find somebody who can do the job that the employer needs can get a placement and they can charge their 15 to 30%, make pretty good money. You do that a few times a year, you're good. The problem is that so many people entered the field. Most of them actually didn't understand the domain. Some did, some didn't. Security people are, for the most part, are not great at selling, and so they starved. Great recruiters are excellent salespeople and marketers. The best are that, plus they also understand the domain that they're recruiting into, which means you have this sort of specialization, which is what we did. Like nearshore cyber is cybersecurity, a little bit of AI where it shows up, but we focus on cybersecurity. Mexico and other places talent, US clients, like that's our niche and that's how it works there. But you had a lot of people who didn't understand that. So you had this huge influx of people, most of whom failed. And the way that those people would get clients was they would call and call and call and call and they would get a nibble and somebody say, I think I might need this. And the greenhorn recruiter says, cool, I gotcha. They go out to LinkedIn and they find 3 profiles. They take those profiles, they package them up and they send them over and say, here you go. And that takes 2 hours for them to do that. Puts me at a kind of disadvantage because it usually takes me about 2 weeks before I'll provide a CV to somebody. So I started to see like this 3-part problem. One, the employers don't know what they want because they haven't sorted out what the job is. Even the people who are really strong at security don't really know what their teams do. Not in a way, not currently and not in future. And so they wind up producing job descriptions that are, and you've seen them. You've seen these job descriptions. They're like
Yep.
insanely long. And usually it's a matter of like, they don't have time to write them. Nobody teaches them how to write them. And a job description is really a brochure. You have job seekers on the talent side or the sales side, same problem and lots of bad advice. Now around I don't know, like 10 years ago, desktop publishing shows up and people are told that, if you want to differentiate yourself, you need to have like fancy graphics on your resume. Or you pay somebody to put fancy graphics on your resume. Around the same time, ATS has been around for a long time. The moment people started OCRing, doing optical character recognition on documents, you started seeing what amounted to an ATS. It's just a database, by the way. The idea that like AI is rejecting a resume is nonsense. It's actually illegal in a couple of states, so people don't do it. There's keyword searching, yes. Um, but an applicant tracking system requires OCR and scanning and taking the pieces of data and putting it in the fields. The more complexity in the resume, the more likely it is the recruiter's going to have to do data entry. Don't do that. Simple. That's the way to go. But the content has to actually be aligned to a job. But no one on the buyer side doesn't understands what that is, and the recruiters don't know how to help their clients write the JDs either. So you have a three-part data problem. You have a job description that is not well formed and has data that's a mess. You have a resumes that get progressively worse. The more people work on them, like the worse they get. And you have recruiters in the middle who are just trying to like bang on the phone, desperately trying to build a relationship. And some of them do. And I've known some great ones. Like I was inspired to get into recruiting by some phenomenal recruiters who understood my business. But those are really rare. That was the model that sorry, my French bulldog is here and that's really bad news. All right. Anyway.
That's
So
I
that's
want
where
to
we
ask you
that's
something.
where it is.
Like,
Yeah.
there's also the parameter, like there's the need of the security team, but there's also budget that it's assigned to recruitment,
Mhm.
right? So sometimes they need to adapt the whole job description to the budget that it's assigned to this specific role. That it did those well. Did, does the budget makes the job description get more compressed and lose some of the descriptions that it's needed, like in reality?
Well, there's a lot of distortion that occurs between the budget and the JD. Now, as budgets have gotten compressed, in large part because like this cybersecurity business, like cybersecurity field has screwed up over and over and over again, right? I mean, yeah, the problems are getting worse, but the ability to manage information security or cybersecurity has been rickety. Like we basically cried wolf so many times that nobody really believes us anymore. It used to be that making the business case to hire was super easy. Now the CFO asks real questions like, what's the return on investment? And security people are like, there is no return on investment. And that's insane from a business perspective. As the CEO of a small business, I'll tell you, like, there's got to be an ROI or it's not happening because I've got 10 other things that do have an ROI. And those are going to get my attention before the sort of like vague, like the cyber threats are really bad stories. Now, these are fixable problems, right? But in the same time that we had like technical people coming into the field who were sometimes good, sometimes great, sometimes terrible, a lot of whom were brought in just because like we needed a warm body, we needed to fill a seat. And many of those people did not progress and get better. The people who were managing them, a lot of the time, had no training in management. There are more than a few CISOs out there who were not good at CISOing because they don't know how to make a business case. They don't understand what business is. And they're running so hot that they don't really have time to understand how money gets made, what gets sold, what the impact of a security risk is, how to measure risk, how to evaluate assets and liabilities, right? Now we have the methodologies. We have things like FAIR, we have GRC. It's great. Like the tools are there, but people are still trying to catch up. What you wind up with is you get job descriptions that are made in haste. A lot of the time, they're just sort of like added on to over time because it's like, I need to hire somebody. So you go to HR and they say, cool, give me the job description. And the hiring manager's like, oh, let me just give you the last one. And we'll add some tech onto it. Now you have this sort of like compilation of things. Another thing that you get is sort of the kitchen sink CV where people put lots of different requirements into a resume, hoping that like it'll kind of attract the right talent, and they're basically like deferring the design of the role until the interview process, which means you're going to do a lot of interviews and you're going to see a lot of inbound CVs and spend a lot of time. And what happens is it takes forever to actually get through the process. In the meantime, job seekers are frustrated. The hiring manager is frustrated. Recruiters are really frustrated because we don't get paid until somebody gets placed. It is not in the interest of any recruiter to make you wait ever. We want to go fast. The fundamental problem that exists across the system, from sellers of talent, buyers of talent, and brokers of talent, is trust. It's especially bad for hiring managers. Like if you're a middle manager right now and you lose your job, you're going to be out of work for 6 months minimum, with rare exceptions. Some people get lucky, particularly people who live in major metropolitan areas. Like if you're in the Bay Area, you're not going to be on the bench for long. If you're in New York City, you're going to get a job pretty quickly. But if you're in Tulsa, or worse yet, you're in Oaxaca, Mexico, and you want to work for a U.S. company, the availability of opportunities is much, much worse. Used to be like nobody gave a damn where you were. Now it's a much bigger deal. If you lose your job as a middle manager, you're in real trouble. And one of the best ways to lose your job is have too many bad hires.
Okay.
You also have internal talent acquisition people who are kind of like agency recruiters, but work in HR. Now, the structure of human resources and the fact that you have like the compliance function in HR mixed up with business partners, which is an absurd term, who are the talent acquisition people, usually, they're oil and water. Recruiters are sales and marketing people. Compliance people are kind of like against that by nature. Again, like the problem is nobody trusts anybody to make a decision to do it right. So what you get is jobs that languish, and eventually you get to the point where it's like, you've had this thing open for 6 months, we're just going to cancel it. So the job that you applied for and maybe went through several rounds of interviews for, where nobody was willing to actually say yes, because everybody has to say yes to protect people from making the bad decision. Well, it kills the entire process. So you have these extremely long vetting processes, makes it bad for everybody. Again, it all comes down to trust. So what I tried to do was do interviews and do them on video and present the interview video with a rewritten CV to the clients. But by the time I got them there, like they moved on, like they went with somebody else or they canceled the gig. So I was not fast enough. So quality gets you low speed. And that made things hard for me with nearshore. What I realized was there is this thing, which we only have in information security. It's called NIST NICE. I won't explain it in detail. You can Google or whatever you do. Yeah, or whatever you like. But National Institutes of Standards and Technology, the people who gave us the CSF and SB 853, has a group called NICE, NICE, that created a taxonomy of cybersecurity jobs. And it has 8,000 sort of atomic units of job roles. And so I had this one client who I was like striking out over and over again, trying to recruit for it. And I took the job description and I ran it through an LLM. I said, break this down by NIST NICE. And it gave me this list. And I said, how many jobs is this? Really? It said, this is 2.5 jobs. That is a unicorn, right? This is not and I said, like, what would this cost if we could actually find them? And he said, well, you won't find them, but if it did, it's going to cost you like 3 times what they're asking, 4 times what they're asking. I said, but what if we broke it down to the 2.5 jobs or just 2 jobs and forgo the stuff that they probably don't even need? What would that cost? And it gave me the numbers. I took it back to the client. I said, how about we just like recruit for these? They're like, that's brilliant. How about you do that for our whole team? So I had a client who was willing to like put down money for us to do what's called a workforce assessment. It's not new. Like we didn't invent it. But we have this advantage in security where we can do this. Now, anybody watching this, I'm going to like give away some of like the secret sauce. You can do this. You can take a job description for a job that you're interested in, take your CV and say, do a NIST NICE analysis and show me where these line up. And actually, when I started presenting candidates to clients this way, and so I would provide the resume at the bottom, I would have this mapping between them, and people are like, "That's pretty cool." I give it to the candidate too. So you go and use it however you like. It's not ours; it's yours. And what I realized was that by making clear what the candidate had and the client had in clearer terms, we increase trust. Now, here's the problem. How do you know what you know? How do you know what your skills really are?
Yeah.
That was the thing. And there's this thing called imposter syndrome that it goes through waves. People don't talk about it much right now.
Yes.
But it goes through this waves where everyone's talking about imposter syndrome. And imposter syndrome is really insecurity, and it's not really a syndrome because most people are actually faking it, especially these days. If you think you have it, you're probably just insecure. How do you get over that insecurity? Well, you provide proof to yourself, clarity to yourself. You find a way to trust your own assessment of your abilities. So this is where Aramis comes in. I'm going to do a little bit of commercial. So Aramis has 3 parts. It has insight, which is for the talent. That's probably you if you're in this. It has a thing called build, which is for employers, which is workforce assessment, and then it has a thing called orchestrate, which is basically a channel. Which I'll defer to some other time. By the way, this is going to be a series. I'm going to break this stuff down in subsequent sessions because we're down to like 7 minutes. We're starting with the talent side because that's where most of the pain is, and that's where we can do the most good. Our goal with Aramis is to accelerate placements. The way we want to accelerate placements is reduce the time it takes from when somebody posts a job to when somebody gets that job. And the way we do that is increasing trust. First thing you have to trust is you. You have to have confidence that you know what your abilities are, what your gaps are, and how you're going to fill those. So RMS has 3 parts. One, what we call Assert, where you do a self-assessment of your abilities. It takes like 10 minutes. There's a second phase called Challenge. It's long. It's like 4 hours. Sorry, guys. That's what it takes. But that's the second phase. And at the end of that, you can see a comparison between what you think you know in NIST NICE terms with what you really do know given a standard job profile. And then there's a third phase where you'll sit down with somebody like me or somebody who has a bunch of years and experience, and you talk about what those gaps are and formulate a learning development path that you can work. There's more after that. I'm not going to bore you with that now. I have like 5 minutes to bore you in a whole other way. But that's really what we're working on. We're in beta right now. This is my call to action, my CTA, which is if you go to project-aramis.com, sign up, you get the first phases of that for free using a code beta100.
I will put it in the comments.
Yeah, put it in the comments. We'll post it later. So project-aramis.com, discount code beta100. We only have like 60 left. Don't sit on this. Once those are gone, we're going to make it 90% off, which is still like $30, right? Still not a lot of dough. But if you're here now, I want to give you a little something, which is you get the first 2 phases of this for free. The third phase there's a lot of labor behind that, and so I can't discount as much. I'm not even going to talk about it. But the point is you will come out of that with a detailed report of your capabilities and a summary and all that jazz, and we will teach you how to work with it. The other thing that we're working on, and this is a later phase, is this. We're going to be able to help you get an interview more reliably and faster, but you have to not fuck that up. Why do people fuck up their interviews? Why, Rodrigo, does somebody do all this work to get to an interview and then blow it? You're a musician, you know.
I think confidence, not knowing how to communicate. Like
But when you're when you're on stage, if you're good, why are you good? What did you do before you got on
Oh,
stage?
I think like confidence comes by practicing, right?
Yes.
So
Yes, you
you
practice.
practice. Yeah.
So subsequent phase after that stuff will be group-based interview workshops. More will be revealed. We're gonna start doing some of these publicly so that you'll be able to like get in a group of people and we'll practice interviewing. The goal here is this. We have to fix the whole goddamn system. When I talk about creating a new market for cybersecurity talent, I'm not kidding. It's not exaggeration. We need to find a way to get people a sense of their own capabilities, to find their gaps, find out where they're overqualified, because some of the tests that we've done, I was like, "You're amazing on paper, and you are actually amazing because you tested yourself. Now let's make sure that you can succeed in the interview." And then on the other hand, on the other end of the spectrum, make sure that the recruiters are confident in you and that the people who are hiring also have a similar degree of confidence so that when they take their CV, which are their job description, to which they have applied the same technique of like, let's break it down and it's nice, those line up. Is there AI in this? A little bit. A little bit. We've developed the assessment questions with a fairly fancy and kind of expensive system I created in Claude. Um, but it's really very lightweight in terms of the AI. It's mainly like this matches that, this doesn't match that, this matches a whole lot, and this matches the job. Now, let me say a quick thing about certifications. This is not pass fail. This is not a cert. Certs are great. I used to have like a wall covered with them. I had those because I would do the work, I would learn how to do the work, and then I would take the certification. That's how they're supposed to work. After you've done the work, not before you've done the work. Certs are great. I used to be a CISSP. A couple of years ago, I decided I didn't feel like paying the ransom anymore, so I stopped. I let it lapse. I got my ISACas, I got my Red Hats, I got my Solarises, I got blah blah blah. Right? Love certs. They're too expensive. CISSP $750 if you don't pay the insurance. And usually it'll cost $2,000 to $5,000 study for it in about like I spent 9 months because I'm slow. Most people will take like 3 months. What we're doing here requires no preparation. You don't study for it. You also don't cheat because we'll find out. And you're only cheating yourself. It's called insight for a reason. It's your insight about yourself vis-a-vis the job that you won. And then it's providing insight into what you know so that people can get you in the right spot so that you can be happy and you make money and you feed your families. Um, our goal our goal is to shorten the process and basically take this huge glut of people that we have in the market who can't find work. And it is true that there are like, I don't know if it's 4 million. I don't believe this. The ISC square people, you should actually read it. What they're talking about is not that there are like 4 million job postings. It's that when they surveyed people, they found that that's what they would hire if they could. There's a whole lot of like ifs in there, but there are a lot of people looking for qualified talent and they can't find it. And I know because I look for it every day. It is hard to find people who have the right match. Diversification of skills and requirements. People who don't know their own abilities. People I get into an interview, I'm like, why did you apply? Even if they are the right country. A lot of them aren't even the right country, right? Why did you apply? It's like, well, it's a numbers game. Well, no, it's not. It's a fit, it's a trust game. But how do you make it clear that you can be trusted to do the work? And that's what we're working on. So
I
what
think
else?
it's
What
it's also important to state that it's putting the language for the person looking for a job to express their skills, and also for people looking for building a team to have the same language between the recruiters they're looking for, right?
Yeah, we are so lucky to be such a disaster that the National Institutes of Standards and Technology created a taxonomy for us. There isn't one for anybody else. Now, in a later phase of this, if this works out and we're able to like achieve our goals, like get a bunch of people a place, make some money, we're going to see if we can like make some investments in R&D and go after maybe other parts of IT. A couple of things we're not doing. I'm not doing pen testing. Why? Because the OSCP is good. The PPNTP is good. Pen testing has job-specific certifications that are effective. We're not doing those. We're not to like replace anybody's certs. We're focused on certain kinds of roles. Yeah.
because they are
Mhm.
also situational. Like they're not really focused on. They give you a case, right?
They're more task oriented. I mean, it's like it just doesn't need to be done. So we're not gonna do it. There will be other area. Oh, we're not doing CISOs. CISO is too diverse, too squishy, too variable. What we do have is cybersecurity manager, which has like the core of the CISO role that we've got. Right. We started with the top 10 most commonly advertised jobs. Most commonly advertised job, top 10. Interestingly, what was missing from that? SOC analyst, GRC analyst. Those are in the top 10 most commonly sought after jobs. So if you think about that, there's a mismatch between number of job postings in the United States and the number of people looking for certain kinds of jobs. Those don't line up. So I did decide a couple of days ago to create 4 new job categories on top of the first 10. That includes SOC analyst, GRC analyst, vulnerability management engineer or analyst, I forgot. And then there's threat hunter, also not advertised for because people want to do those assessments. But beware, just because you score well doesn't mean the job's going to be there. Another thing that we're not doing yet is AI explicitly. AI shows up in certainly engineering disciplines and some of the other jobs. We're kind of waiting on that one to see how AI job roles and security coalesce. And we're working with some friends like I was just talking to Rock Lambros about that. We're going to look at that toward the end of the year. But don't expect to see like AI security yet. If you want to do AI security, well, let me leave y'all with a couple of things. One, we have a Discord. We used to have a Discord. Now we have a Discord again. We'll post a link to the Discord. I hate Discord. It's like frantic. Anyway, but we have a Discord.
It's great.
Rodrigo's gonna run it. He also likes Reddit. I can't keep getting get kicked out of Reddit.
I think there is
We
a
have
age difference here.
totally. Um, yeah, so we have a Discord. We also have a community on the Circle platform. We'll put those in that. Anything else? What am I leaving out? We're 3 minutes over, and I live in Mexico, but I'm still German, so I had to try and be punctual.
I think that Discord, Circle is the neutral flavor.
Yep. Oh yeah, it's a neutral cyber circle. Aramis Discord.
The beta code, beta.
We'll post that. Yep.
I have posted
Oh,
it. I already posted it.
and it's in beta, so stuff will be broken.
Yeah.
But so far, my turnaround time on fixes is like literally 12 minutes. I did it last night. So if you find things, there's an errata section in Discord. I think that's it. I think we did our first one. There'll probably gonna be another 6 or 7 of these, and we're gonna focus on the problem and the pain. And then as we get through that, you'll start to see like the solutions. And thank you. Let me call some people out. Jeffrey, thanks for coming. Chris, it's so good to see you again. Susan, Susan is like literally a pillar of her community. Don, good to see you. Captain, always a pleasure. And a bunch more. Thanks for coming out. If there was anything that you want to know about that we didn't get to, put in one of those places or come to another one of these. I'm going to the beach, y'all. Night.